On the evening of October 11, 1973, two men sat on the west bank of the Pascagoula River in Mississippi, fishing off an old pier at shipyard. The sun had gone down, the water was still. Then a blue-gray craft, glowing and oval-shaped, descended from the sky and hovered just above the ground behind them. Charles Hickson, 42 years old, turned around first. What he saw would change both their lives forever. Hickson would later describe a craft roughly 30 to 40 feet across, producing a faint, buzzing sound. A door opened, 3 figures emerged. They were roughly 5 feet tall, pale gray, with wrinkled skin, no visible eyes, and claw-like appendages where hands should have been. They moved toward the two men with a strange, mechanical glide, as though their legs did not bend. Hickson said he was paralyzed instantly. He could not run. He could not scream. The entities seized him and Calvin Parker, Hickson's young co-worker, who fainted from sheer terror. Both men were levitated off the ground and floated into the craft. Inside, Hickson described a brightly lit, featureless room. A device resembling a large floating eye moved across his body, as though scanning him. He could not feel the floor beneath him. He could not move his limbs. The examination lasted what he estimated to be 20 minutes, though he had no reliable sense of time. Then, just as suddenly, both men were returned to the riverbank. The craft rose silently and vanished over the tree line. Parker was on the ground, weeping. Hickson stood there, shaking, trying to comprehend what had just happened to them both. Charles Hickson was a Navy veteran and a foreman at Walker Shipyard. He had no history of mental illness, no criminal record, and no prior interest in UFOs. He was a working man with a family and a reputation in his community. Calvin Parker was 19 years old, a quiet and reserved shipyard worker who had only recently moved to Pascagoula. He was so traumatized by the event that he avoided public attention for decades. These were not attention seekers. They were not hobbyists chasing headlines. They were two ordinary men whose only connection to the extraordinary was a Thursday night fishing trip that went terribly, impossibly wrong. After the encounter, Hickson and Parker drove to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office and reported what happened. Sheriff Fred Diamond was skeptical. He separated the two men and, without their knowledge, left a tape recorder running in the room. The recording captured Hickson and Parker speaking privately, both visibly distressed, neither contradicting their story or showing any indication of rehearsal. Parker was near hysterical. Hickson repeated quietly, over and over, that he could not believe what had happened. Charles Hickson later submitted to a polygraph examination administered by a credible operator. He passed Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the astronomer who served as scientific consultant to the Air Force's Project Blue Book, traveled to Pascagoula to investigate. He found the witnesses credible. Journalist and researcher Ralph Blum also examined the case and reached the same conclusion. No physical trace evidence was recovered from the Riverbank site. Keesler Air Force Base, located less than 30 miles from Pascagoula, reportedly received the initial call from the sheriff's office that night. Military personnel were said to have shown interest, then quickly stepped back. No official investigation was ever made public by the Department of Defense. No federal agency issued a formal explanation. The case was never debunked. It was never resolved. It was simply left open, hanging in the silence between what two men reported and what no authority was willing to confirm or deny. Charles Hickson endured ridicule, media scrutiny, and years of public doubt. He never recanted. He spoke about the encounter consistently until his death in September of 2011. Calvin Parker retreated from public life for more than 4 decades before publishing his memoir, Pascagoula. The closest encounter in 2018. In it, he revealed details he had suppressed for years, including additional encounters he said he experienced in the months that followed. The Pascagoula case remains one of the most well-documented close encounter reports in American history, and it remains entirely unexplained. If two men with nothing to gain told the same impossible story for over 40 years, and no authority ever proved them wrong, what exactly are we afraid to believe? Subscribe and decide for yourself.